to the speakers to answer your questions. Now, let's get formally started. Dear leaders, dear guests, good afternoon. Welcome to the 2020 Green Supply Chain and Climate Action Forum organized by IPE, SEE, NRDC, SEE North China Center, Alibaba Environmental Center. This annual forum. This is the section on green supply chain. I'm Li Meng, the moderator today from IPE. First of all, please allow me to introduce the guests and the leaders as well as suppliers. They are Deputy Secretary of Information Center of the Environmental Association, Chen Zhijun, Chen Ming, Deputy Chief Economist of FECC, Mao Tao, Director of Energy and Resources Environmental Institute, MIIT Center for International Economic and Technological Cooperation, Wang Zhengyu from Environmental Information Association, Gina, McCarthy, President and CEO of NRDC, former Administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Right Honorable John Goomer, Lord Deben, Chairman of Committee on Climate Change, former Secretary of the State for Environment, Mindy Luger, CEO of Ceres, and Linda Greer. NRDC China Program Deputy Director Wang Yan, NRDC China Environmental Law Senior Lawyer Wu Qi, SEE North China Project Center Fourth Chair Zhu Tong, Alibaba Charity Foundation Zheng Gaobo Deputy Secretary General, Alibaba Foundation Qinglan, Serenity Foundation, IPE Director Ma Jun, Green Supply Chain Director Ding Shanshan, Presidents of Archroma, Nike, Dell, Cisco Supply Chain, VF Corporation Sustainability, CNA, H&M Conspiracy Strategy and Engagement Lead, Huawei Procurement and CSR Senior Manager, Foxconn Investor Relations Director, Gelan Digital Technology Senior Operational Manager, and also many thanks to Beijing Municipal Environmental Protection Founder for Entrepreneurs, IBM, OP Foundation, Energy Foundation, SCORE Foundations, Bloomberg Foundations, for their generous support for IPE's activities. And also many thanks to Wuhu Environmental Center, Friends of Nature, Wuhan Xingche, and other NGOs partners for providing support in our on-the-ground visits and investigations. This forum has also been supported by People's Daily, China.com, CCTV, China Environmental Newspaper, Daily Economics, Economic Observation, China Environment, South Weekend, China Weekend, and South China Morning. And also, many thanks to all the audience who have following us on the live stream of Bilibili.com. At last, I would like to introduce an APP, China Environment, which is developed by China Environment Newspaper. It is a comprehensive information platform for green supply chain. And all the participants today can get information on latest environmental policies. Now let's formally get started. Since 2014, the first Green Supply Chain Forum was held. For many years, it has received support from many ministries, including MIIT of China. Today, we have the great honor to have with us Chen Ming, Deputy Chief Economist of FECC, MIIT, to give opening remarks. Mr. Chen, please turn on your microphone and the video chatting function. Can you hear me clearly? everybody. Thank you, moderator, ladies, guests, dear friends. Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to speak on behalf of MEE Foreign Environmental Cooperation Center for 2020 Green Supply Chain and Climate Action Forum. I have noticed that this year's forum highlights more on the theme of climate action. I think that is a response to President Xi Jinping's announcement in the UN Assembly to make China's contribution to make sure that the carbon emissions peak in 2030 and fulfill our commitments on cutting carbon emissions. We know that to deliver the commitment, China must take more powerful and aggressive actions, which requires government, enterprises, and individuals to transform their way of lives and production and innovate way of development and practice green development. Among them, promoting green supply chain is a great handle. For the past few years, we have been doing a lot of things to promote green supply chain, and a lot of progress has been made. And this has laid a solid foundation for China to deliver the commitment on policy promotion. China has introduced many policies and documents to advocate the concept and the practice of green supply chain. In 2018, 8 ministries, including MEE and MOFCOM, jointly issued the document to encourage the pilot programs for green supply chain innovation, including green supply chain as a priority area. In 2019, the master plan for the development of the Gulf area covering Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangdong province also mentioned green supply chain. And also the central government has stipulated that ensuring the stable development of supply chain is a key to economic stability. And also China has been developing technical methods and case studies on green supply chain to reinforce decision-making support and capabilities in Tianjin, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and other cities. The green supply chain pilots have been initiated, and we have been also looking for solutions for real estate, home appliances, retailing, e-commerce, and other sectors to integrate green supply chain into these areas. On cross-sector regional cooperation, we have established the Asia-Pacific Green Supply Chain Network and initiated the Green Supply Chain Cooperation Platforms to promote the exchanges on the practices of green supply chain. Last week, we held the 2020 APEC Green Supply Chain Network annual meeting, centering around the theme of the green supply chain promoting resilient regional economic development in the post-COVID-19 period. And also, we have reached a consensus on the stable and sustainable development of the regional green supply chain. In the next part, I would like to share with you some of my thoughts. First of all, at present, the international environment is very complex. Green supply chain faces many opportunities and challenges. The COVID-19 has hit the global economy hard. The global supply chain has been shocked greatly by the pandemic. Unilateralism and protectionism are on the rise, increasing the uncertainties in global development. But on the other hand, in the new landscape, all countries are faced with the urgent task to stimulate economic recovery. Many governments have issued stimulus packages, and the global supply chain and the value chain are under the way of reshaping, which will create new opportunities for green supply chain. We should tide over these opportunities and the trend. And in addition, China is on the cusp of stepping into the 14th five-year plan. It is a critical moment for China to build a well-loved society. Developing green supply chain is key for China to achieving high quality and green economic development, and it is also a very realistic choice for China. From government to enterprises to regulation to market, green supply chain's concept, technology, and methodologies, as well as its catalyst, are looming larger. We should feel more confident and continue with our efforts to promote green supply chain. Thirdly, the widespread development of the green supply chain requires the support from policy, so, technology, and practices. And also, it should go hand in hand with environmental oversight and information transparency so as to create a synergy. Not a long time ago, with the World Resources Institute, we made a decision to initiate the policy study on the green supply chain. And the report will be released very soon on the coordination mechanism, technical system, and the synergetic effects. We have come up with many policy recommendations, which will be sent to the State Council. If you are interested, you can download the report on the official website. In addition, I would like to take this opportunity to tell you that in June this year, our center established the Green Supply Chain Institute. The aim is to create a system of government decision-making support, market regulation, and services for green supply chain development. I hope that in the future, we can have more cooperation. These are my remarks, and the last but not least, I wish this forum a complete success. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Many thanks to MIIT for your support to IPE. Here we noticed some questions. There is a translation button at the bottom of Zoom interface. If you are Chinese, you can choose English channel. If you are Chinese, you can choose the Chinese channel. And if you are foreigners, you can choose the English channel. China is a big economic powerhouse in the world and plays a key role in promoting green supply chain. The green supply chain policies and the green factory standards released by MIIT provide very important information on which the companies can rely on. Today, we also have the great honor to have with us Mao Tao, Director of Energy and Resources Environmental Institute, MIIT. Mr. Mao, please turn on your microphone and camera. Can you hear me clearly? Yes. Dear leaders and experts, dear entrepreneurs, good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to be invited to the forum. I will share with you my personal thoughts on green supply chain practices and the 14 five-year plan. We know that China is proactively promoting innovation in environmental management, guiding enterprises to create green supply chain, and has created initially the China model for green supply chain management, making its own contribution to the global transformation to green supply chain. In 2014, the guidance on corporate green purchasing was issued. When China started to pay attention to green supply chain, starting from 2016 or 13th five-year plan, the policy-making pace has accelerated. China has issued a series of policies on green supply chain or green development of industries. At the same time, the standardization has speed up. Apart from the guidance on green manufacturers and companies' green supply chain management, there are other, at least 8 relevant standards are in the making, covering machinery, electrics, electronics, automobile, and photovoltaic. And also, Director Ma mentioned that some pilots have been initiated in Tianjin, Dongguan, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. And they have also explored some scalable and replicable practices and models.
Green manufacturing system integration, supply innovation, and pilot programs are also rolled out. With many years of efforts, China has already formulated a system that is guaranteed by law, driven by policy, and led by standards. And a lot of pilot programs are driving the local implementation of these strategies. Companies, especially leading companies in different industries, are more enthusiastic to be part of the effort of improving green supply chain, especially the first four batches of green manufacturing demonstration projects under MIIT has already come to a list of 90 companies with good green supply chain management approaches. And there are even more companies entering that list in September this year. In total, there are 200 companies now that are set as the typical well-to-do companies when it comes to green supply chain management. Well, the supply chain management approach in China is getting more mature. There are also problems. There is still a lack of initiative for companies to build green supply chain, and we still don't have enough system building efforts, and we still fall short in terms of pilot programs, and we still lack some depths in terms of international cooperation. That's why during the 14th five-year plan, we still have to further enhance our system building when it comes to green procurement, information release and disclosure. We need to come up with a high-level policy that can further provide guidance for companies to roll out their green supply chain management approach. And we need to formulate a policy mechanism that is forceful in terms of implementation of the practice. And we also need to make sure that the standards can cover more industries, especially the key industries. And we also need to make it very clear what are the priorities in building green supply chain and providing effective guidance to companies. The second step is to take a step-by-step approach to promote those pilot programs. While we are carrying out such pilot programs, we also need to focus on the quality of the existing projects. For example, we have to do more capacity building for those pilot companies. We need to give it to full play of the roles of the government, industry association, industry alliance, research institutions, and we need to provide training, guidance, seminars, and workshops for those companies to further improve their green supply chain management. Second is to have dynamic management that is actually with well-to-do companies and companies that need to further improve their capacities at the same time. And for those companies that are not doing a good job, they need to be washed out from the pilot programs so that we can guarantee the authority and impartiality of such projects. Third is that we should further promote information disclosure, and we need to build up public service platform for green manufacturing. And we also need to give it to full play of the role of energy saving and emission reduction comprehensive service systems. And we also need to make sure that when companies and their vendors are having their productive activities, we need to make sure that they are under monitoring and they are away from making fraudulent efforts to become such pilot companies. And the fourth is that we need to conduct a third-party evaluation and assessment, which is market-based. Now, there are already such evaluation system for mechanics, automotive, electronic compliances, and we need to help those companies to better locate the problems and further perfect their green supply chain management model and fully unleash their potential of developing green supply chain. And the fifth is that we need to take a step further in those pilot areas, including Dongguan, Tianjin, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. we need to provide further support that's coming from the government for those good results to be consolidated. And we also need to try at some municipalities and county level cities where there is a concentration of manufacturing industry to conduct a green supply chain system building, service system building, and tax and fiscal and financial system building to further promote the development of green supply chain, especially when it comes to municipal cities and when it comes to major cities pilot programs in China. We need to make sure that the key areas, key industries in those localities can be covered. And we also need to find some highlights and specialties in this process. Third is to continue international cooperation. On one hand, we need to draw merits from the international community. We need to learn from the best practice, and we need to make full use of this kind of international seminars and international cooperation mechanisms to share China's good practice as well. And we believe that the contribution coming from China can also be conducive to the global efforts of building green supply chain. On the other hand, we also need to promote cooperation between Chinese stakeholders and stakeholders from the international community, including industry associations, research institutes, and businesses to work together to build international standards for green supply chain and promote the conversion of domestic standards to international standards. Taking this opportunity, I'd also like to mention that there is a book under the title of me and Mr. Ma Jun, which is called Green Supply Chain Innovative Application System and Practice, which is going to be published by China Society Press. And this book is with 26 different organizations and entities that are part of green supply chain study and practice, and there are 14 chapters with 280,000 words in this book. This book is conducting a objective evaluation of the current supply chain development in China, and it has also made it very clear that there are still issues and problems with China's green supply chain building effort. And we should also give credit to some of the achievements China has made. And it is inevitable for something to be missed in this book. So we'd like to welcome you to give us some comments or correction. Now, some of the books have been mailed to me, and the book is not available to public yet. So if you are interested, feel free to share with us your mail address so that we can send the book to you. So please share such information with our IPE colleagues. With that, I'd like to conclude my speech. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mao Tao, for the kind remarks as well as the sharing of some of the policy trends. I do believe that for suppliers here, a lot of the information shared by Mr. Mao must be quite valuable to you. And we also provide a link here, and also our email address is available. Feel free to reach out to get a book. China, as a developing country, is drawing merits from the advanced economies all the time. We are very honored to have Right Honorable Gentleman John Gummer, Lord Deben, Chairman of Committee on Climate Change and former Secretary of State for the Environment and Minister for Agriculture of the UK, to have a conversation here. However, due to time difference, Lord Deben has prepared a video that can be shared with everyone here.
great honor to have you joining our annual Green Supply Chain Forum and share your insights with the audiences in China and abroad. Here's thank you. Here's my first question. With a global pandemic yet to be put under control, how do the United Kingdom and the European Union plan for their recovery? Will we see a green recovery this time?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that in the United Kingdom and in the rest of Europe, countries are intending to get back better. That's the slogan of leaders from every kind of political party. They clearly see that the only way that we can recover the economy is to do it in a new way, because what
Deben, it is a great honor to have you joining our annual Green Supply Chain Forum and share your insights with the audiences in China and abroad. Thank you. Here's my first question. With a global pandemic yet to be put under control, how do the United Kingdom and the European Union plan for their recovery? Will we see a green recovery this time?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that in the United Kingdom and in the rest of Europe, countries are intending to get back better. That's the slogan of leaders from every kind of political party. They clearly see that the only way that we can recover the economy is to do it in a new way, because what COVID has done has been to show up the failures and the faults of the system that we have had up to now. I think it's been a very impressive change in the way that governments and indeed the financial industry and business has changed. As you know, Marjun, we in my business look after people's sustainability in Sancroft, and I thought that they would hold things up, not to go on doing them. I thought we may go through an empty period. Not a bit. They have insisted not only on doing what they were doing, but doing more of it and doing it more quickly. It's as if the pandemic has made them understand that the threat of climate change is much more real, because they didn't expect this risk. They knew about the risk of a pandemic, but they didn't expect it. Now that it's hit them, they realize these big risks are real risks, and therefore not just governments, but the businesses and the financial world has made that decision.
Great. Yeah, thank you for such a
Thank you very much for this inspiring conversation. Now, in 2014, NRDC and IPE have jointly come up with evaluation system, which is the CITI index of green supply chain. It is aiming at providing some guidance and performance gauge for companies. Today, we are extremely honored to have Gina, McCarthy, President and CEO of NRDC and former Administrator of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be with you, virtually at least, from my home in Boston. Beijing and Boston are a lot alike. We're centers of culture and government whose residents are insufferably proud of our history. You've got a couple of thousand years on us, but we're doing our best to catch up. But I am really proud today of the important work of the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs and all that you and your partners have achieved. Your work is helping people across China and around the world to use the power of the pocketbook to help bring about environmental progress and change, to help address the injustice and inequity that puts low-income people and often people of color at the front lines of environmental harm, to help protect our communities and the health of our families, and to help fight the climate crisis facing all of us. Climate change is a global problem, and it does require a global solution. And the work that you are leading is an important part of that solution. When IPE was founded 14 years ago, there really was no way for the public to have an idea whether a factory or its suppliers were polluting air or water. No way to know the impact these operations were having on people's health and that of their children, and no way to find out what, if anything, was being done about it. We were really in the dark. That was a problem for China, and that made it a problem for all of us. Because if there's one thing that we've learned this year above all else, it's that we are all truly connected. Supply chains are the thread that knits us together as producers and consumers in the global marketplace. What happens to any single link in that chain has a direct impact on all the others. And just as each of you is working to make your companies, your factories, and your suppliers part of the global climate solution, so too are consumers of your products. Here in the United States, we buy $450 billion worth of Chinese-made products each year. And more, the American consumer, especially the generation that will dominate our economy for the decades to come, wants to support companies that are part of the solution, not part of the problem. And everywhere I go, people want to know what they can do in their own lives to help fight climate change. Well, it starts with being a responsible consumer. And that's what this new generation is all about. They're doing the research. They're connecting the dots between what they buy and the impact those products have in the environment. They want to know that the sweater that they buy didn't contaminate the rivers that people in China depend on for safe drinking water. They want to know that their smartphones didn't pollute the air and cause asthma attacks or heart disease for people who are living near those factories. And they want to know that the shoes they buy don't leave a carbon footprint that drives us towards climate catastrophe. Because we're seeing the impact upending our lives, not just in China, but across the world, including in the US. Hurricanes swamp our cities along the Gulf Coast. Windstorms and droughts devastate Midwest farms. Western wildfires have burned enough land this summer alone to cover the state of Maryland. And all of this adds to the injustice and inequities that we have to address in our country, because we know climate change is inflicting a disproportionate toll on low-income communities and communities of color. The more we suffer from climate hazard and harm, the more we're following the links in the supply chain back to the source of the carbon pollution that's driving this global crisis. Consumers know that when pollution is part of the product that they're buying, that they're simply paying for something that none of us can afford. Instead, consumers want to reward those companies that make it their business to do their part in the climate fight. That's why NRDC is so proud to be a partner with the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, and it's why we're so excited about the pioneering work that you're doing. This includes projects like the Corporate Information Transparency Index, which ranks nearly 500 of the best-known brands in the world from Dell computers to Coca-Cola, according to how serious they are in protecting the environment. This index provides consumers in China and around the world with the window into more than 11,000 Chinese factories that are voluntarily opening their doors and opening their books to share information about their air and water emissions. And its sister project like the Supply Chain Climate Action SCTI Index, which looks at nearly 300 companies that produce everything from cars to bicycles and scores them by climate actions and goals and just how well those targets are integrated into corporate decision-making and governance. And of course, the really exciting Green Supply Chain Map, an interactive website where people can click on the name of well-known brands like Levi jeans and Nike shoes, for example, and pull up a map of their suppliers showing key environmental data like air emissions and wastewater discharges in real time. You know, all over China and all over the world, consumers are taking note. We're using this information as a tool to guide our purchases, and we're becoming consumers of conscience. We're making decisions about what we buy based on what we're buying into, and we're choosing to invest in a world that's healthier, more prosperous, and more equitable for all of us. This is the direction we must keep heading in. It's what people all across the world are demanding. And the momentum is unstoppable. Thank you.
谢谢 Gina，也感谢
Thank you,
NRDC。
Gina, and thank NRDC for your support to IPE on green supply chain. Beijing Environmental Entrepreneur Association, since its creation, has been supporting the NGOs and civil societies on environmental protection and nonprofit activities. It has served as a platform for environmental protection and sustainability. Now, I would like to give you one of the organizers' representative, Tong, fourth chair of SE North China Project Center. Let's welcome. Distinguished Secretary General Bai Zhijun, Deputy Chief Economist Chen Ming, Director Ma Jun, dear partners from enterprises and environmental organizations, good afternoon. I'm the fourth chair of SE North China Project Center. It is the annual moment when we release CITI index. It is the fifth time that SEE is the organizer of the event. And also it is the 8th year since our collaboration with IPE. Over the past 8 years, we are not only a strong supporter to IPE, but also a witness to the achievement of non-government environmental organizations. In 2014, when we participated in the first release of CITI, we evaluated only 8 industries, including just 147 brands. But this year, CITI has assessed 540 brands from 20 industries, a great progress compared to 2014. And also led by these pioneering brands, environmental improvement has been prominent compared to that year. Here on behalf of SEE and other partners from companies, I would like to thank IPE and corporate partners for your attention to sustainability and continuous efforts on that. Thank you very much. Just as we expressed in our mission statement, we should enhance entrepreneurship to keep the skies and the waters clean and blue. The complicated environment and social issues require systematic solutions. It requires the concerted actions of all individuals in all communities. And in that, enterprises or the corporate world should take a big responsibility. On the Environmental Day of 2004, initiated by Liu Xiaoguang, almost 100 entrepreneurs initiated SEE, an ecological association on preventing desertification. It also intends to establish a platform for Chinese entrepreneurs to practice environmental protection and motivate more entrepreneurs to pay attention to the environmental protection and the protection of our homeland so that they can take up corporate social responsibility and explore the sustainability of enterprises and society. From 2008 to the present day, we have initiated Beijing Entrepreneurs Environmental Foundation, Shenzhen Groups Wetland Protection Foundation, and Huabei Yangtze River Ecological Protection Conservation, and other public raising and non-public raising foundations dealing with regional or national environmental issues. And we are working together with more environmental organizations and enterprises and friends from other communities to seek the solutions to these issues. In these years, SE has funded over 700 environmental organizations in China and provided help and helped the birth of over 400 organizations. We have accompanied and promoted dozens of organizations to be the leader in their sectors. We have created a cross-sectoral collaboration network on pollution prevention, birth habitats protection, Sanjiangyuan protection. We have also consolidated the contributions from donors, NGO partners, entrepreneurs, experts, scholars, government officials, journalists, and volunteers, and created 10 project grants. The entrepreneurs have have provided generous support to SEE as well as contributed their insights and wisdom, and also motivated their employees, families, and friends to participate in it, especially green procurement and green consumption to explore more contributions to environmental protection. SEE, an organization initiated by 100 entrepreneurs, has become a big environmental protection platform engaging thousands of entrepreneurs. It has changed the role of Chinese entrepreneurs from bystanders to key part of China's environmental protection. Environmental problems solution require the accountability of enterprises. On that, the corporate members of SEE have actively fulfilled their commitments to environmental protection. Many of the entrepreneurs and corporate members of SEE pay a lot of attention to green development and have initiated a series of environmental protection actions. Many of our corporate members are the leaders in their industries like Yachang. It is a model green printing company in China for a long time. Yachang has made great investments in corporate energy saving and environmental protection. It has upgraded its green printing technologies, introduced advanced equipment, green technologies, green materials, making its VOC emissions far lower than the caps in national standards, almost achieving net zero emissions. Also, based on the features of our members, SE has actively participated in and initiated the industrial advocacy for green supply chain in 2016. SEE, CRUBUA, and VANG, Langshi Green Group. Together with these four organizations, SE initiated the green supply chain action in China's real estate industry. By promoting real estate companies to practice green procurement, we promote the environmental improvement of the upstream suppliers and reduce carbon emissions and pollution from the entire supply chain. So far, over 100 real estate companies have participated in the green supply chain. 1/3 of them are corporate members of SEE. Their total annual sales reached nearly 2 trillion RMB, accounting for 20% of the industrial total. We launched 7 categories of action plans and whitelists covering 3,669 companies. In 2019, we applied the standards to the 9th batch of procurement under the CRBU-BA.
The cooperation for 2020 is undergoing, and there will be 3 new categories of whitelist, and there will also be a blacklist mechanism documents. So these latest achievements of green supply chain campaign will be released by the end of October in 2020. Based on the compliance requirement of whitelist of the green chain campaign, a green list has also been launched. Now, the guidelines and the general principles of such a green list has already been completed, and the online sign up and screening platform are also completed. So for those companies that are pass muster, they will be enlisted on the green list and get access to prioritized procurement. At the same time, we also provide professional training and technical support to real estate developers and suppliers of theirs to learn from some typical cases and take concrete actions against the climate change. The real estate industry green supply chain campaign is a joint effort reflecting all those member businesses and their initiative and contribution to the efforts of sustainable development. In the future, environmental risk, climate change risks will exert extremely high influence over our entire economy and society. There is a very high stake. That's why facing with all these problems and risks, modern environmental governance needs the participation and coordination of government, NGOs, businesses, scientists, donors, and the public. Today, CITI is a very vivid example to show such cooperation and how successful it can be. We hope in the future there can be more such positive interactions so that we can formulate the landscape for a virtuous and benign environmental governance. I wish today's event a great success. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank Mr. Zhu Tong, and we'd also like to thank all the organizers and the sponsors for the kind support. Today, we have Zoom and Bilibili live streaming of this event. Now there are 1,500 people watching our live streaming on bilibili.com. And this is ranking number 2 in all the environmental and social responsibility related programs. On Zoom, there are also 300 members of the audience watching here. We'd like to thank all of you for your kind attention and participation. If there is any question coming from Bilibili, you can also ask question there, and your question will be collected. Now we'd like to move on to the next session, which is the CITI release of 2020. COVID has brought disruption to the Chinese economy and the world at large, and at the same time, it is raising new challenges to green and sustainable supply chain. However, with a lot of efforts undertaking here in China, COVID now is under control, and since March, there are a lot of suppliers that are back to their feet. So with the efforts taken in industries such as textile and IT industries, supply chain management has become an industry practice. How brands are leading suppliers to take initiative and be responsible for the environmental impact, and how to further plan their green and sustainable supply chain development. Now we'd like to invite Mr. Ma Jun, Director of IPE, and Madam Ding Shanshan, the Director of Green Supply Chain from IPE, to give us this release of CITI. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe now you can hear and see me. Today, I'm going to launch the Green Supply Chain CITI Evaluation 2020 together with Mr. Ma Jun. I'd also like to thank all the opening speakers for the kind words and insights. This year is a special one. More and more people, they are doing their business online. And we also choose to conduct our work online. We are announcing and we are releasing this CITI report here. So this has been conducted for 7 years in a row. We'd like to thank the foundations that we are working together with over the years and all the environmental NGOs, especially the Wuhu Ecology Center that we are working together with, and all the interns and volunteers that have been around us since this year. Now I would like to start with today's release. 2020, COVID has brought unprecedented impact over the global manufacturing industry, but leading brands have been pushing forward with green supply chain, fueling the green recovery of the world economy. If we are looking at the monthly change in terms of the brands maintain momentum in driving factories to take responsibility for compliance problems, a lot of factories, they have to be suspended with their production or shut down during the worst of the pandemic in China. And in March, with COVID got under control in China, suppliers, they started with their management of environmental performance again. And in April, we are also looking at how the supply chain management getting back to normal, and reforms and corrections to existing supply chains are also taking place even more forcefully than last year. At the outbreak of the pandemic, we have seen that brands' supply chain management were affected, but generally speaking, in terms of the annual environmental disclosure, we have seen more companies that are doing so. And we believe there is going to be a slight increase compared with what's going on last year. 3,000 businesses. So during COVID, when those brands, they cannot send people to the factory sites to do inspection, how to manage their suppliers. Big data and internet instruments have come into play. For example, the Blue EcoChain, which is an instrument developed by IPE, can help those companies to track the performance of their supply chain and tracking the human effort involved in the reform and the correction efforts of those companies. Now, 54 brands, they actually employ Blue EcoChain, including 2020's newcomers. So there are listed companies such as GrandBlue and Archroma, which is a leading environmental company, and also automotive suppliers. They are all doing what they can to lead the effort of supply chain management. And they are also promoting their suppliers to use Blue EcoChain to focus on their own environmental performance and assume their responsibilities accordingly. by September this year, there are almost 25,000 suppliers that are using the Blue EcoChain to focus on their own performance. With the efforts of the brands, and more brands, they start to go upward from tier 1 supplier to more upstream suppliers. So 46 brands have extended their environmental management to raw materials such as metal and yarn processing and chemical processing, as well as the centralized wastewater treatment and hazardous waste treatment facilities their suppliers used. We also included logistics into our evaluation. So 28 brands incorporated the logistics providers in their scope of environmental compliance screening, and some of them have made it public to provide some information available. So with the leading brands that are working towards the right direction and the same direction, we believe this really made a difference, especially when it comes to improve the standards for procurement. With all of these industry associations such as SAC, PSCI, and RBA, we are making a difference, especially for the PSCI, which is the pharmaceutical industry. We have seen PSCI requires its auditor to check publicly available data about companies regarding regulatory compliance via Insblue map database. So that can be a very good result, and it can help us to improve the credibility of the result of evaluation. IPE is also working together with China Urban Reality Association, CURA, and we participated in the 10th joint procurement campaign online training program, and we provided information to 60 companies in that association. And this year, we are also helping those companies in this association to evaluate their environmental performance. So there are companies in different sectors, such as sanitation, water pumping, glass, and heating, as well as home appliances and furnitures. They have made public announcement and explanation about their environmental violations, and also there are more and more environmental compliance requirements that are being incorporated in the principles of this association in order to make sure that there are more better performers, not companies that are not doing well. And there are also 5 new brands that have increased the supply chain transparency. Bestseller, Group, and the others, they have participated in this joint effort to improve transparency, and 20 brands have made it public of the environmental performance of over 2,000 suppliers. Aside from the transparent supply chain, during this evaluation, we have also noticed that more and more brands, they are having a closer tie to their suppliers. They have set their emission reduction and energy saving targets, and they are requiring their suppliers to comply with their requirement, and they are also doing tracking of the environmental performance of those companies in terms of their pollution, discharge, and emissions. For Adidas, in 2019 financial statement, there is also a target for water consumption reduction in its supply chain report. And with the green supply chain map of IPE, Adidas has made 31 suppliers to fill in the information for 2018 and 19, and they have saved wastewater. They have reduced wastewater by 2.8 million cubic meters, and they have also helped to save fresh water by 1.88 million cubic meters. And also they are dealing with the VOC. They are changing the old pattern of non-organized VOC discharge to organized discharge. And this is the good practice of Adidas this year. We have also noticed something else during this evaluation.
I'm not sure if you have visited the outlets of CNA in Beijing and Shanghai. And this poster is posted in outlets of CNA in Beijing and Shanghai. And this is also part of their energy efficiency and environmental protection activities. And also, it also shows that we are expanding our channels of publicity. We put the posters at the front of the outlets directly to raise the consumer awareness of environmental impact from their buyings, so that we are able to combine the market operations with environmental protection, and also it provides a pathway that the environmental protection industry can consider in promoting environmental protection to motivate the consumer awareness and then encourage companies to be more environment friendly, just to create a positive cycle. So we hope that more companies can adopt the green ways to guide consumers to make green decisions. And these are the good practices of the CITI Masters and the top 50, same as the previous years. So we released these rankings of the CITI top 50. Apart from the CNA hosting, CITI has also extended its green supply chain to the suppliers of more raw materials. Apart from CNA, like VNF Corporation, maybe it is not a familiar name with you. Later on, you will hear the remarks from VNF's leadership. Uniqlo, Carrefour have also increased their environmental management along the supply chain. They have made the top 20 this year. Chinese brands like Huawei, Li Ning, and green real estate are also committed to environmental management in the supply chain. And Foxconn, ZTE have also extended environmental management from their own factories to suppliers, especially the chemicals serving as raw materials of their production activities, to improve the environmental performance of these suppliers. This year, we also have some new companies making the list, like BNG and Amazon, and they have made the rankings for the first time. Last but not least, our CITI master. After Apple last year, Dell has become the second CITI master this year. Last year, Dell was ranked 56th, but after including environmental performance into the evaluation system for suppliers, Dell suppliers have continued to improve their environmental performance by purchasing in a green manner. And also Dell has contributed to the extension of green supply chain upstream and downstream. Later on, we will also hear the good practices from Dell. Driven by these leading brands, we are also heartened to see that Apple, Dell, and Panasonic and other top 500 companies, as well as Huawei, Ning, TCL, and Langshi Real Estate, have also mentioned their collaboration with IPE in their annual sustainability report, including their practices into their current environmental management, and also Cisco for the first time included it into the handbook of IPE. After years of efforts and promotion, we have seen that While making these achievements, the environmental performance have also continued to improve. By the end of this year, over 12,000 companies have made efforts to disclose their environmental information. Among them, we have collaborated with the companies to conduct over 7,300 environmental auditing to see the effectiveness of the environmental improvement. And also these suppliers have released over 6,000 PRTR data. Most notably, over 25,000 companies have used Blue Map and Blue EcoChain to track their own environmental performance and implement the accountability system for their companies. That's all for my part. Now I'd like to give you Ma Jun, Director of IPE. Mr. Ma, would you please turn on your microphone and just start sharing your screen?
可以看到吗？
可以看到您的屏幕。
好的。大家好，我是
Good afternoon. I'm Ma Jun from IPE. It's my great honor today to meet you virtually online at the annual forum. Together with other organizers, I would like to extend our warm welcome and thanks to leaders, experts, enterprises, NGO partners, and foundations. And a warm welcome to the audience online. Similar to previous conversations, in the release of CITI index, we will have an outlook because there are so many brands and suppliers who are collaborating with us. And also we have partners from government, NGO, and foundations. All these partners want to understand the future directions of CITI index. First of all, the first extension is further upgrading of CITI index. Recently, we collaborated with Peking University's Big Data Lab and our partners at CPI to launch the Smart Environmental Protection Index to promote our environmental monitoring, enabling environmental agencies to use big data and the new technologies to expand monitoring of environmental information. Chen Ming, Deputy Chief Economist from MIIT, mentioned in his remarks that Chinese government has made a commitment to achieving carbon neutrality. So low carbon is a clear direction, and low carbon will be included in the development of green supply chain. In order to achieve the goal, we launched the latest version of low carbon map. On the map, we have collected the latest information on the picking track and the company's emissions. That is also what we are going to focus on tomorrow, the low carbon action of China. And also, Chen Ming mentioned the development of regional green supply chain. As an NGO, we have participated in that. At present, we are conducting surveys in surrounding areas and talking to people there with the hope to contribute to the green supply chain. In the beginning of this year, the pandemic of COVID-19 hit us suddenly, and in response, we use new technologies and big data to produce the apps, and which have been very well received. And later on, Bank has also supported our development and launch of a blue map for garbage classification. Apart from garbage classification in communities, we also provide information of garbage classification in the company and the factory levels, with the aim to address the last mile bottleneck of garbage classification like plastics and marine waste. We hope to make our contribution to deal with these problems at the source, so that the companies using renewable and recyclable materials will be enabled, and we welcome them to collaborate with us. And also, we have initiated the development of the blue eco map. Biodiversity has become a global challenge for the world. Next year, COP19 will be held in China. We hope that a new consensus on biodiversity conservation will be reached, which was not reached in COP14. And China has drawn the biological red lines in order to protect biodiversity. And we will do matching of the companies within the ecological red lines and explore with them how to reduce footprint. Ms. Ding has also mentioned that the big data has also been used in green finance. The information we collect can be used by financial institutes in issuing credits to monitor their environmental performance. And in the pandemic, we are also helping thousands of companies who borrow thousands of banks and financial institutes like Youchu Bank. The first time it started to include environmental information and dynamic environmental performance into the issues of green finance. Lastly, all the big data and the new technologies I mentioned have been integrated into the Insblue, a new platform and app. It has deeply integrated the IPE's big data and the relevant technologies. Together with our partners, we create a new platform for the market. Later on, we will have a dedicated part on the platform. Lastly, another map that is most relevant to today's topic is the global brands map. We can see here in Asia, Asia Pacific, Europe, and North America, the brands that are sourcing globally have been put on the map. And from this map, you can check their performance in the supply chain. Also, in the process of evaluation, we will see if their emission commitments have been met, as well as the specific actions on reducing the discharge of waste air, waste water, hazardous materials, substances, and GHGs. I hope that this global price map can help more and more stakeholders, consumers, and investors, as well as NGOs, to evaluate the companies more clearly in a joint manner so as to make global production, purchasing, investing, and financing greener. Thank you.
哎，好，谢谢马老师。
Thank you very much, Mr. Ma.
马老师对 IPE 最新工作方向的分享。
Thank you for sharing some of the updates about IPE's work. And thank you, Shanshan, for sharing the report. If there's any question for IPE or to our speakers, you can raise your questions on Zoom and Bilibili. Later, we are also going to share the complete version of this report on IPE website. To find out more, you can get the report through the link on Zoom.
历来绿色供应链论坛的举办目的都
The
是
purpose of having green supply chain forum is to make sure that we can have a platform where we can share practice, concepts, and innovations with regard to green supply chain. That's why we have invited 10 representatives from different brands to share with us their thoughts.
2020年，戴尔成为继苹果
Dell has become
着翼品牌。那他们将团队
city master
供应商的
after Apple
激励供应商
became the first one, and Dell has been
首先有请今年
improving its environmental performance
供应链可持续
ever since. Now I would like to invite Christy from Dell to give us
方针，
introduction about how
有请 Christy。
Dell is dealing with the social environmental impacts.
Hey everyone, and good day. I want to thank IPE for inviting Dell to be a part of the 2020 CITI virtual conference. This is a really exciting time for us. And, you know, IPE has really been a part of Dell's multi-year journey of improvement around sustainability in our supply chain. If you think about it, you know, it wasn't very long ago where Dell featured number 56 on IPE's rankings. And last year we made it to number 1 on that same rankings. And now today we're graduating to the master class. That's a really big accomplishment for us inside Dell. And I want to thank IPE for driving our company, for driving the industry to reach such a high standard. It's been an important part of our journey as a company. So thank you very much. And thanks again for the invitation to join you today. I'd like to spend a little bit of time with you today talking about our Progress Made Real strategy, and importantly, how that plays out in our supply chain and the role that IPE helps to facilitate our success in this area. Now, I know we talked to you last year about our Progress Made Real strategy, but just a reminder, at Dell, our purpose is to drive human progress. That's fundamentally why we do what we do, why we build the technology and the portfolio that we build. And last year, we released our framework for how we think about that from a sustainability and people perspective. We set pillars that included advancing sustainability, cultivating inclusion, transforming lives through technology, and privacy along the way. This Progress Made Real initiative demonstrates how we at Dell want to create positive and lasting impact on humankind and the planet. And we've set a bold, ambitious agenda through 2030 to expand our reach and to make a real impact and lasting impact on the world and the people who inhabit it. And our supply chain plays a really important role in that. You know, at Dell, we're really proud of our reputation as an industry leader in sustainability. And there's no way we could achieve that reputation without our supply chain. It can and must play an integral role in Dell's sustainability journey. And this, frankly, isn't just a Dell commitment to sustainability. It's a customer expectation of what we do. Now more than ever, our customers care not just about the products that we make, but how we make them. And so we set really high standards, not only for ourselves, but for our suppliers. And now how do we ensure that these standards are met? We embed sustainability into everything that we do. It's part of our procurement strategies. It's part of our supplier screenings. It's relevant to the supplier onboarding process. It is part of our ongoing business relationship in our quarterly supplier reviews. And the only way we can drive these high standards is by relying on data. Data is critical to this effort, as is transparency throughout our supply chain. And so we leverage tools like IPE EcoChain, the IPE Blue Map, to gain insight into our supply chain's sustainability practices, to develop corrective action plans, continuous improvement plans, so that we're all better together. And so again, I just want to thank IPE for their role in driving industry improvement in these critical areas. So let's talk a little bit about how we're doing. You know, I'm very proud of the progress that Dell has made, and we're making more progress every day. We talk about our progress every year in our annual supply chain sustainability report. And what you see on the screen represents some of what we talked about in our 2019 report. We provided over 10,000 hours of training to professionals at supplier facilities on social and environmental responsibility principles and practices. We've worked with suppliers to save over 15 million meters of fresh water. And even today, we're addressing water issues at the community level through multi-stakeholder roundtables, encouraging suppliers to become certified for water stewardship. And we're committed to transparency that is required from us and from our suppliers so that we understand and can respond to environmental risks. This is another really important role that IPE has enabled for us in our supply chain. We've leveraged the PRTR data that resides on the IPE platform to gain insight into our risk areas in our supply chain and to drive solutions across our supply base. We're really proud of the fact that in using this data, we've been able to work with suppliers to mitigate 100% of the risks that we've identified. We've also set our bold agenda in writing in our 2019 Supply Chain Sustainability Report. We've committed to partner with our suppliers to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 60% by 2030. We've made sure that by 2030, our goal is to have 75% participation of our employees in volunteerism in our communities. By 2030, for every product a customer buys, we will reuse or recycle an equivalent product. There's no way we can achieve that goal or the goal of having 50% of our product made with recycled or renewable material. There's no way we achieve that without working very closely with our supply chain partners and understanding the trends of the future. And on packaging, we need to get to 100% recycled renewable content there. That will be no small engineering feat for our team, for our suppliers, and we're committed to making progress every year and reporting on that progress as we make our way over the next decade. So I hope you can tell we're really committed to this sustainability journey, and we're making progress every year. I think the industry is making progress every year, thanks to organizations like IPE that are driving a standard of transparency across the board. We still will face challenges, but we're going to take those head on and be ambitious about the goals that we set for the future. Now, I can't let this moment pass without a quick thank you to everyone in our supply chain, to our company for the very important work we've all done around responding to the global pandemic and COVID's impacts on our workforce, our people, our families, our communities. And I would just say that the commitment that we at Dell have long had to sustainability, that we've long had to employee health and safety, to ethical standards, all of this came into play as we responded to the conditions that the pandemic laid out before us over the last several months. And I couldn't be prouder of how we in this company and all of our partners have really risen to the challenge of this unprecedented moment to be successful and be thoughtful about how we protect our people along the way. So with that, let me just say, the future needs all of us together. We look forward to the continued partnership, the continued progress that this ecosystem of NGOs, suppliers, all of us will contribute going forward. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Christy, for the introduction of Dell's supply chain and the sustainable development approach. Ms. Ding from IPE also mentioned CNA with its poster at all the stores have been raising public awareness of environmental responsibility and leading more consumers to make green choices. I've also seen that their approach has been recognized by someone from the audience. Now we'd like to invite the representative, Adam Brennan, unit leader from Environmental and Chemical Sustainability at the CNA, to share with us Blue EcoChain expansion and the benefits.
Hello, my name is Adam Brennan, and I lead the Environmental Stewardship Programme at CNA. Firstly, thank you to IPE and its partners for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm going to be discussing CNA's adoption of the Blue EcoChain tool, how we have implemented this across our direct and indirect supply chain, the value it has provided to us, our suppliers, and our consumers. Firstly, a quick introduction on who CNA are. CNA are a Dutch family-owned company founded in the 1840s. We operate nearly 1,900 stores across 21 countries, and we have over 700 suppliers in our global supply chain network. Within our sustainability strategy, we have three core pillars. Sustainable products, which looks at sustainable materials and circularity. We have sustainable supply, which looks at safe and fair labor and clean environment. And then we have sustainable lives, which looks at sustainability engagement within our employees, our customers, and our supply chain workers. It is within the clean environment pillar of sustainable supply where we have goals related to chemicals, water quality and discharge, and climate change. So why and how does CNA engage with IPE? Firstly, if you look at the mission statement of IPE, they promote information disclosure and collaboration in order to bring back blue skies and clear water in China. Based on this mission statement, it is very much aligned with what CNA hope to achieve through our sustainability strategy. And we view IPE as an enabler, both to CNA and the rest of the industry, delivering us tools that allow us to minimize our environmental impact and improve our performance. We have adopted all of IPE's key tools. These include Blue EcoChain, which allows our suppliers to track their own and their downstream supply chain's environmental compliance status and the status of any remediation plans that they have in place. From a brand perspective, it provides us with real-time information of what is happening in our supply chain. Are there any issues? And if an issue is identified, it allows us to react swiftly and create effective remediation. Secondly, we use the Green Supply Chain brand map. We now have over 100 facilities that have a high environmental impact that are now showcasing their environmental performance on the map. These facilities are directly linked to CNA. So both for us as a brand and for our supply chain, it increases the accountability through this increase in transparency. This allows all of us and our stakeholders to hold us accountable for our current environmental performance and to monitor our progress as we go forwards. And then lastly, PRTR, Pollutant Release and Transfer Registry. We now have many of our key facilities in China publicly disclosing their resource consumption, their air and water pollution and discharge, along with any solid waste generation that they are creating. In addition, these are also accompanied with targets that they have in place to minimize their environmental impact. So from a brand perspective, why do we engage with IPE? Firstly, being in the apparel, textile and footwear industry, we have a very large direct and indirect supply chain that requires efficient and effective mechanisms to monitor the performance that happens throughout the supply chain. And this is what IPE provides us with. Through Blue EcoChain, CNA now have real-time notifications on any environmental violations that are detected within our supply chain. Having this real-time information allows us to act very quickly and effectively in ensuring that these issues are remediated and prevented going forwards. Blue EcoChain has also helped us to change the status quo from being reactive, where the brand goes into the facilities, identifies issues, and then tries to use the brand's leverage to remediate those issues, to a more proactive approach, where the suppliers are now taking ownership of their own environmental performance because of the increase in transparency. This has really helped us to create a more effective remediation program and allows us to obviously track the status of our supply chain much more effectively. We also use the IPE tools to screen potential suppliers that want to work with CNA. We screen them for environmental violations that they may have been recorded in the past and not yet addressed. This avoids CNA bringing in new suppliers where we know there are already issues that need fixing. And then lastly, it allows us to monitor remediation and ensure that they are removing any records of violations that they may have had in the past. This helps us to mitigate and reduce the risk. So what have we been doing across 2020? First of all, we have really looked at expanding our Blue EcoChain coverage across all of our direct and indirect facilities. From a direct facility perspective, we now have nearly 300 facilities registered in Blue EcoChain. These include cut and sews, laundries, printers, embroiderers, and key fabric mills. But we have also focused on adoption across indirect tiers, which are traditionally harder to engage. In 2019, we identified that we need to increase our engagement with the chemical supply chain. We've had a 2,000% increase in adoption of Blue EcoChain within our chemical suppliers. We now have over 100 of CNA's key chemical suppliers monitoring their environmental conformance and compliance using the tool. But we have also been working with centralized wastewater treatment facilities, hazardous waste treatment facilities, and ensuring all of our logistics partners are also monitoring their compliance status. We have also increased our transparency, and we now have all of our key fabric mills listed on the Green Supply Chain brand map. We have also adopted the GCA audit, the Green Choice Alliance audit. So when issues are identified in the supply chain, we use the expertise and impartiality of IPE and its network of NGOs to ensure that remediation is carried out and to validate that the issue is closed. We have now nearly 60 suppliers who have high environmental impacts in China, now disclosing their emissions and environmental performance through PRTR. And we now have nearly 30 of these that have mid to long-term targets tackling the environmental performance. Earlier this year, we also had approval for our science-based targets, which will ensure that CNA limit our contribution to climate change and that of our global supply chain in alignment with the Paris Agreement. And we'll see all of our Scope 3, including all of our Chinese suppliers, reduce their emission by 30% by 2030. We have also launched a carbon leadership program in China to understand what support do our suppliers need, what is the status quo, and what interventions are needed within our Chinese supply chain to help them limit their contributions to climate change. We also worked on engaging our consumers with work that we are doing through IPE and also other channels, allowing them and providing them more information to make a green choice. From a supplier perspective, our suppliers have told us that they use Blue EcoChain, and it has allowed them to increase their communication with facilities further in the supply chain, which in many instances they have not done before. It has allowed them to promote environmental awareness and has allowed them to track the performance of their downstream suppliers and address any issues that they're identifying. They have found it to be a very good and effective tool for both increasing collaboration and for monitoring progress and addressing any issues. And then lastly, a consumer perspective. So early in 2018, CNA launched the Wear the Change campaign, which was our first multi-channel sustainability communication platform, where all the products with this label are produced and sourced in a way that is more sustainable and is backed up by verified sustainability claims. We have worked, and this is an example from our stores in China a couple of months ago, to promote best practices in environmental performance. This is a case study from one of our suppliers who is using the IP tools to track their own environmental performance and that of their supply chain, and they are also engaged in reducing their environmental impact to the environment. CNA will continue to disclose best practices from our supply chain and increase the awareness and knowledge amongst our consumers. Thank you very much. I hope you found that informative, and I also hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank
you, Adam, for your sharing. Previously, many brands and suppliers have expressed their intention to learn from how leading brands are managing supply chain. Through Adam's informative remarks and presentation, you will be inspired. In the world of interconnectivity, Cisco has played a role in developing smart education, smart city, and smart health. Now I would like to give you Mr. Edwin Deben, Vice President of Cisco Supply Chain Transformation, to talk about how Cisco practice supply chain management.
It would have been great to be there with you in person. However, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today in this way. I've been part of Cisco for more than 20 years, and I've seen how Cisco has defined innovation, reimagined connections, and pushed the limits of what's possible since its beginning in 1984. Cisco helped build the internet, and the internet changed everything. Now anything and anyone can be connected. Cisco creates infinite possibilities for creative collaboration, smart cities, education, healthcare, and more. For example, Cisco technology enables telehealth applications so people can get the care they need no matter where they are. Especially during COVID-19, that has proven to be critical. Cisco IoT solutions use sensors and advanced data processing to help cities and business grow sustainably. Our HyperFlex infrastructure is used to power port automation software at the Port of Shanghai. We enabled a 30% increase in cargo handling efficiency and 10% reduction in carbon emissions. In supply chain, we know that making the world a better place with technology begins with how that technology is made. A responsibly managed supply chain upholds human rights and promotes worker health and well-being. We also want to minimize negative environmental impacts and collaborate broadly to promote healthy ecosystems on which our planet depends. As a company, we have set ambitious public goals and committed the necessary resources to make meaningful progress in reducing the environmental impacts across our value chain. These goals include our commitment to 100% product take-back, which was announced by our CEO, Chuck Robbins, at the World Economic Forum in 2018. By 2025, we will design all new Cisco products and packaging using circular design principles, and we will decrease our use of virgin plastics by 20%. 70% of Cisco component and manufacturing suppliers will achieve a zero waste diversion rate at one or more of their sites by 2025. And by 2030, we will reduce Cisco supply chain related Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. Minimizing environmental pollution is an essential part of responsible supply chain management. And like all work in supply chain sustainability, addressing pollution requires a lot of work and effort. It requires rigorous data collection and analysis, working with suppliers to drive change, and partnership with organizations to advance shared goals. In 2017, Cisco began our collaboration with the Institute of Public Environmental Affairs to address environmental pollution in China. We leveraged their Blue Map pollution database to screen our supplier sites for environmental violations. We then used our influence with those suppliers to drive them to correct identified issues and reduce their impact to the surrounding environment. To date, Cisco's efforts have resulted in the screening of more than 500 factories in our first, second, and third tiers of the supply chain. Based on those screening results and Cisco's influence, more than 130 factories have corrected more than 360 environmental violations. They have provided information on their progress in the IPE database. And during the past 2 years, Cisco has required more than 100 factories to complete pollutant data in IPE's Pollutant Release and Transfer Register platform. Altogether, this work is reducing environmental impact and promoting transparency for environmental protection in China. Cisco recognizes we can extend the reach and impact of this work by cascading these requirements through our global supply chain. We have engaged our manufacturing partners in China to implement the same process. They screen their suppliers and work with them to address violations. We also collaborate with our manufacturing partners to influence component suppliers. As an example, we identified a tier 2 supplier site with an air pollution issue. We had a small spend with that supplier and therefore not a lot of influence. We were able to bring in a manufacturing partner, and together we were able to drive our requirements and get the issue corrected. Looking ahead, we believe the focus on supply chain sustainability will continue to grow, not just for Cisco, but for all our stakeholders, and not just in China, but globally. The interdependencies of society, the environment, and long-term prosperity have probably never been so clear as they have in 2020. The impacts of climate change are increasingly visible. Think about the wildfires in California, where Cisco is headquartered, the tropical storms, and the melting of the Arctic. There is an increased urgency to take action on this global challenge. The world continues to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic. Responsible businesses work to meet customer needs and protect workers' health and well-being. Governments are looking to build back better, and the opportunity is ours collectively to collaborate, drive progress, and make meaningful impact on these issues we care deeply about. This will affect the future of our planet and subsequent generations. In this spirit of working together with our supply chain, our industry peers, and organizations with whom we have shared values, we are truly honored to be named as the #1 in the IT industry Corporate Information Transparency Index this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction from Cisco. Now, after listening to three foreign brands and their representatives, I think you must also want to know what kind of green supply chain practice is being carried out by Chinese companies. Now, I would like to invite Peter Zhou, Senior Manager of Procurement Sustainability at Huawei, to introduce IPC 1401 standard accelerates Huawei's green supply chain practices. Thank you very much for the introduction from Mr. Ma and IPE. I'd like to share with you IPC 1401 standard accelerates Huawei's green supply chain practice. First, I will be talking about the management standard of IPC 1401 with social responsibility strategy of the company. Usually, we have the compliance strategy, defense strategy, and adaptive strategy. How to go from compliance strategy to adaptive strategy is a gradual process to deal with other problems that we have in compliance, to be more self-adaptive to such strategy. IPC 1401 was initiated 2014, and the first edition was released in 2017. And in 2020, it has been renamed as CSR Management System Standard. When it comes to IPC 1401 standard, it is with the ISO system standard framework, emphasizing the drive by customers and business strategy. It emphasizes how CSR can be incorporated with the development strategy of a company. And there are also 5 different layers in it. And in 6.1, cost revenue analysis, return on investment analysis are introduced. And in 2.2, in 6.2, the 6 predicted, the 6 forecast results were being mentioned, and CSR has been incorporated in all the functionalities of a business, and also being incorporated in the life cycle of products and the business process. According to ISO system 1401 is dealing with all the issues of CSR. It is citing a benchmark of 90 scores out of 100 rather than 60 out of 100. And it comes up with four forecast results, which is about compliance guarantee, customer satisfaction, reduction of risks, and improvement of efficiency. It is very much about how the system is market-guided and customer-centered. Talking about the 5 layers of compliance obligation of CSR, you have the laws and regulations at the bottom, you have ethics and moral standards, you have industry standards in the middle, and you have customer requirements on top, as well as the corporate strategy on the very top. So there are 4 results, including compliance guarantee, customer satisfaction, risk reduction, and efficiency improvement as the 4 most important requirements for IPC 1401. It has redefined corporate environmental protection. It is the responsibility of every functional department and also the responsibility of every single employee of the company. It is also part of the general quality requirement of the product. So that's the redefinition of environmental protection in this particular context. Second is the environmental attributes. And the third part is about value chain environmental attributes. So every single business process should be incorporated with all the standards requirement in IPC 1401. Based on the obligations on 5 different layers for compliance, there needs to be opportunity and risks identification for environmental protection performance, and they have to be broken down and reflected through daily business operations. As for Huawei's sustainable strategy, there are 4 parts: digital inclusion, safety and reliability, green environmental protection, and harmonious ecosystem. So when it comes to green product, we emphasize that we need to start from the whole life cycle of the product to reduce carbon footprint, keep improving environmental indicators of the product. When it comes to green operation, we've also introduced the solutions for smart industrial parks to reduce the energy consumption and cut carbon emission. As for the efforts of reducing landfill of solid waste, that's also a major initiative taken by Huawei. As for green partners, we have a 3-leg stool model for green supply chain. We have been adopting IPE Blue Map, and we also participated in the national standard making for green supply chain, and we participated in China Green Supply Chain Alliance. And we are also leading the effort for IPC 1401 standard, incorporating CSR in more industry practice. Talking about green partners, that's supplier carbon emission reduction, prevention of pollution, and environmental protection with regard to materials. So these are the 3 components. And we have been working on 3 frontiers to keep improving the performance of our suppliers. And this is also being incorporated in the KPI evaluation of the suppliers. When it comes to new supplier certification, environmental performance has been almost serving as a determinator, and if there is environmental violation, supplier will be vetoed to join the list of vendors for Huawei. We have conducted supplier environmental performance management. For those that are well-to-do, we prioritize them as preferred suppliers, and we also reduce and limit the business for those suppliers that are not doing well with environmental performance. In that way, we try to keep optimizing our supply chain. We also work with our customers to conduct joint auditing and inspection of suppliers and the supply chain as a whole. And we also share the result with the customers we have. We've got recognition from JAC for what we achieved. Looking forward, we have set specific goals when it comes to carbon emission reduction of suppliers. We require top 100 suppliers to set their emission reduction targets. And when it comes to the company's operation carbon reduction, we've set the target that by 2025, the unit sale and revenue carbon emission to be reduced by 15%. So that is the information I'd like to share with you about IPC 1401. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zhou.
Our next speaker is from the largest clothes company listed in the stock market, VF Corporation. It might not be a familiar name to you, but if I tell you the North Face is under VF, you may know this company well. Now I would like to give you Gina Malone, VP of Global Sustainability of VF. Let's welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Gina Malone, Vice President of Global Sustainability at VF Corporation. VF is one of the world's largest apparel, footwear, and accessories companies, connecting people to lifestyles, activities, and experiences through a family of iconic outdoor, active, and workwear brands, including Vans, The North Face, Timberland, and Dickies. At VF, I lead the global sustainability function, driving the company's environmental sustainability strategy, goals, and actions, covering all aspects of VF's footprint, including our direct corporate impacts, supply chain environmental impacts, and impacts of materials and products. I also oversee our sustainability and ESG reporting. Our commitment to sustainability is tied to our business purpose, to power movements of sustainable and active lifestyles for the betterment of people and our planet. As a purpose-led company, we have a responsibility to protect the natural environments we all share and explore, and to ensure a sustainable future for the next generations. In addition, our business is rooted in a solid foundation of compliance with local and international norms, together with our purpose and our values. This foundation leads to a more purposeful sustainability work that is value creating to our brands. Our focus on transparency and traceability allows for transparent storytelling to our many stakeholders, ESG investors, governments, NGOs, our 50,000 associates, the more than 1 million people who work in factories around the world to make our products, and the millions who enjoy our brands as consumers. Our purpose has also come to light with our people-first approach to our COVID-19 response. VF Corporation, the VF Foundation, and the VF family of brands have donated more than $10 million in funds, products, and services worldwide to stem urgent medical needs and help those struggling to cope in the face of this pandemic. Ensuring the safety and well-being of VF business partners is a top priority. The company has implemented health and safety training globally to all of our factories to ensure that these best practices are being implemented. In 2016, we developed a comprehensive sustainability strategy, Made for Change, which consists of 3 pillars with a focus on the interconnection between people and the planet. First, circular business models, in which we are building opportunities to lead our industry in the transformation from linear to circular. Second, scale for good, in which we aspire to leverage our substantial scale to transform our industry's 3 largest areas of impact: climate change, raw materials, and worker well-being. And finally, movement makers, in which we strive to inspire our thousands of associates and millions of consumers by uniting their efforts to create a movement of sustainable and active lifestyles. We've established a number of environmental and social goals within our Made for Change strategy, all which align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in order to address the increasing impacts of climate change, last December we announced industry-leading science-based targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across our entire value chain, consistent with the goal of global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. Also last year, we became a signatory to the UN Fashion Industry Charter on Climate Change, whereas we and others in our industry commit to carbon neutrality by 2050. We are making progress towards all these goals, but we know we have more work to do, which requires partnerships, innovation, and collaboration. So how do we collaborate to strengthen transparency and accountability of our supply chain? On a quarterly basis, we utilize the IPE Blue Map to screen on our entire factory base in China. Our sustainable operations team is actively supporting our factories towards remediations on the ground. We disclose supply chain environmental performance of our factories in China using Green Supply Chain Brand Map to the public. Traceability gives us visibility into every aspect of our supply chain, identifying areas that need to be addressed and improved. VF also collaborates with industry partners and other brands to accelerate supply chain environmental impact reductions. We leverage the Apparel Impact Institute Clean by Design program to improve energy and water efficiency of our fabric mills, where these mills typically include resource and intensive processes such as dyeing, washing, and printing. And we are also increasing engagement with other stakeholders with a deep interest in sustainability. For example, the ESG investor community. In February of this year, we issued a 500 million euro green bond, the first in the apparel and footwear industry. Our inaugural green bond is an important step in advancing our sustainability journey and our business purpose of supporting projects for the betterment of people and the planet. Elevating our focus on and investment in circular and sustainability projects allows us to leverage our scale for good and achieve our ambitious science-based targets. With that, I would like to say thank you again for the opportunity to discuss VF's commitment to sustainability, transparency, and our collaboration with IPE. This type of collaboration is extremely important as we work together to find solutions to combat the complex and interconnected issues facing our world today. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
谢谢 Ginny 的分享。作为世界知名的时尚
Thank you, Ginny, for your sharing. As a well-known fashion brand, H&M's mission is to provide fashion quality in a sustainable manner. It is one of the first consumer goods companies publishing its list of suppliers. Now I would like to give you Georgina Waltier, Transparency Strategy and Engagement Lead of H&M Group, to introduce H&M's group's work with IPE. That's welcome.
Increasing our level of transparency is a key part of H&M Group's sustainability strategy. We believe that the disclosure of relevant, accurate, and accountable information in an honest and accessible way will not only drive positive change throughout the industry, but it will also enable more informed decisions. By creating accountability and insisting responsibility, transparency is a key driver of more sustainable business operations, and that's something we're 100% committed to at H&M Group. We started our transparency journey at H&M Group a number of years ago when we became one of the first fashion retailers of our size and scale to make our supplier list public back in 2013. Since then, we have worked continuously to disclose more supplier information through both our own interactive supplier map on hmgroup.com and via our products. By being open and transparent about where our products are made and who our supplier partners are, we hope to push the industry forward to engage in greater supply chain disclosure that will drive the change towards more sustainable business operations and greater positive impacts throughout the industry. Our engagement with the IPE platform and the Blue Map is an extension of this work, and it has really enabled us to continue driving our transparency ambitions and continue developing and expanding the depth of our supplier disclosure. We started working with the IPE platform in 2014, and for us it's an incredibly valuable supply chain management tool that complements our existing supply chain management strategy to enable greater transparency. Online monitoring of data connected to factories within our supply chain allows both our in-house teams and the suppliers themselves to keep track of environmental performance and to ensure swift and effective mitigation plans in the case of any violations. This ability is both beneficial for H&M Group and the suppliers. Our teams use the IPE platform to perform new supplier screenings before the onboarding process begins with a new supplier, as well as existing supplier screenings which take place on a monthly basis. Last year we were really pleased to extend our use and work with the IPE platform to include working with Blue Map. Blue Map allows our suppliers to self-monitor their own environmental performance, as well as giving them the possibility to provide upstream management to any suppliers they follow. We believe that the transparency enabled by Blue Map creates a greater sense of ownership, of self-reliance, and of empowerment for our supplier partners. It gives our suppliers a real opportunity to take control of their own operations, and this approach very much complements our own supply chain management strategy. The IPE platform and the Blue Map provide us with easy access to a huge database that's regularly updated, that's in line with the Environment Protection Actions, and that helps us further increase our level of supply chain transparency. For us, this is an incredibly helpful tool that we will continue to work with to further push our supplier disclosure work forward.
感谢 H&M 的感谢 Georgina 的分享。
Thank you, Georgina, for your sharing. From 1.0 to 7.0, over the past 7 years, we have expanded green supply chain to more and more sectors, starting from assembly factories, clothing factories, to finished products, and then to the upstream companies. Most of the brands started to pay attention to chemical. Since last year, we have seen that more and more chemical suppliers started to choose to work with IPE on green supply chain management. This year, we have the great honor to have with us the leading company in the field of coloring and special coloring materials company, Heike van der Kerkhoff, CEO of Archroma. That's the one.
Good morning or afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all well and in good health, as well as your family and friends. Before I start, I would like to warmly thank Mr. Ma Jun for inviting me to speak at this important event, and also for our excellent collaboration with the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs. I would like to start to introduce Archroma, which I have the pleasure to lead as CEO since January this year. For those who don't know us, Archroma is a global leader in the specialty chemicals, supplying industries such as textiles, fashion, packaging, paper, adhesives, paints, and construction. With our products, we touch people's lives every day, everywhere. You can find out innovations and solutions in many consumer goods, from your paper notebook to your clothes to your car seats. This gives us a huge responsibility. That is why we have defined the principles of what we describe as the Archroma way to a sustainable world, safe, efficient, enhanced. It's our nature. Of these three pillars, safe is the most critical for the sourcing of our raw materials and our intermediates. With safe, we mean that it's our nature to protect those coming in contact with our solutions. And our effort in this area have been noticed and also rewarded. Only in the past few months, we received the Gold Award of EcoVadis, and the IPE itself has ranked us #1 in the subsector of industrial chemicals, for which we are extremely proud and grateful. So how did our relationship with IPE start? Well, Linda Greer, Global Senior Fellow at the IPE, first contacted us in March last year. We immediately agreed to meet and discuss how we could support each other in our common goal and responsibility to make our industry more sustainable. A year later, I'm proud to say that IPE and Archroma have established a close relationship. We have fully embraced the approach of the IPE, and our procurement team actively contributes to the IPE platform by monitoring the incidents reported by our suppliers and to support them to implement the needed corrective actions. But you might wonder, why did we believe that working with the IPE would help make a difference towards making our supply chain more sustainable? From our first meeting, our team has been very impressed by the consistency and determination of the team at IPE. Not only is the IPE encouraging us to challenge our suppliers in terms of safety, health, and environment, but they also encourage us to challenge ourselves to go even beyond our own strict policies and processes. I'd like to illustrate this with some concrete examples. Many companies have ambitious CSR targets, policies, and practice, but they struggle with implementing those at the field level. This is a challenge for us when we source from exporters and traders. We need to have full transparency and on what happens on the level of the actual producing entities. This is where the approach of the IPE supports us. They look at what happens behind the scenes, directly into the production sites. Furthermore, we have been amazed, for instance, to see how the IPE is making use of artificial intelligence to screen hundreds of thousands of documents to uncover CSR gaps and inconsistencies. This is a remarkable, innovative, and clever use of modern technology for the good cause of making our business more sustainable. In fact, we have been so impressed by the positive impacts of our collaboration with the IPE that we started to invite other partners in other regions to evaluate the IPE approach and maybe adopt some aspects. We have also offered to support IPE in their strategy to expand their activities to other countries, so that eventually we all may be able to use the IPE Blue Map to check our prospective and existing suppliers as part of our standing sourcing procedures. To conclude, looking forward, whilst many companies may be under pressure to deal with the global COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the economy, CSR challenges should remain on top of our agenda. We, the leaders in our industries, have the responsibility to keep on addressing the climate change challenges and do everything we can together to reduce our impact on the environment. It is very encouraging to see many people, companies, governments, and organizations like the IPE staying focused on our responsibilities towards the planet and its people, and continuing to build sustainable solutions and supply chains. Thank you.
感谢昂高总
Would like to thank the CEO of Archroma, and we also like to invite more companies from the petrochemical industry to be part of green supply chain. To have sustainable production is not only about reducing energy consumption and reducing emission and discharge. There are also a lot of terminal treatment that has to be dealt with, such as wastewater treatment and solid waste treatment. We need to have whole life cycle management. With the new solid waste law in China being implemented in 2019, there were a lot of efforts being conducted in China to have zero waste, for example, and reduction of emission and discharge in the China industry. So when it comes to solid waste, what about the performance of industry leaders such as GrandBlue? And GrandBlue is also #1 brand when it comes to its industry. Now I would like to give the floor to Jinduo, the president of GrandBlue. Hello, everyone. We are GrandBlue from the environmental industry. Solid waste, wastewater treatment, energy are the components of our business. We like to thank IPE for the kind invitation, and we like to celebrate the efforts taken by IPE in building green supply chain. Since we entered this solid waste treatment industry in 2013, environmental protection has always been the core of our DNA. In our development, we have been looking forward to achieving the harmony between nature and humanity, and to make what we deliver part of the solution of better environment and better environmental values to our cities. Last year, we have taken multiple efforts to further improve our contribution. When it comes to public awareness building, we have more channels and we have a more responsive feedback to the public. For example, we promoted all the solid waste processing and treatment facilities, including daily trash, kitchen waste, to build up a public awareness platform where everything is traceable, and Blue Map has become a very important platform for us to achieve the traceability of our own performance. And we are also building new projects such as the live trash incineration project, which is increasing the dealing capacity of daily trash, but without further energy consumption. And we are also working on film treatment improvement technology and zero waste city brain to work on all the discharges reduction of daily trash. And we have also been improving our capacity and efficiency of energy saving and water consumption reduction and solid waste treatment. We will keep working on what we are good at to build even more green projects. We hope that everywhere we go, we can make it greener with GrandBlue solution. Thank you very much.
感谢金铎总裁的分
We'd
享。
like to thank Jin for the sharing from GrandBlue. So just now we heard the upstream industry of the supply chain as well as the downstream, the problem solvers presentation. Now, what about the manufacturers? We'd like to invite someone from Foxconn. Today we have Alex Yang, the Foxconn Investor and Government Relations Director, to give us introduction on Foxconn's approach. Here, I'd like to tell you how grateful I am. We'd like to thank you all for caring for Foxconn, and you made us capable of contributing to our society, and we never forget our CSR, because the more achievement we get, the more responsibility we should assume. As a leader of tech manufacturing in the world, we have always been honest, innovative, green focused, and creating an environment for the employees to enjoy. And we have been making our fair share of contribution to environmental protection with what we can do. We have built up the energy consumption database, and we also conducted a big data analysis, and we also established a system integration system that's conducted in the format of an array, and we've also conducted a lot of efforts to optimize the energy consumption reduction efforts. Foxconn, dealing with a lot of geopolitical challenges and changes, are also trying to adapt itself to the new dynamic, but we will always be upholding the principle of we get from the society, so we give to the society, and we will continue to require all our suppliers to be compliant with our standards when it comes to occupational safety, energy efficiency, carbon emission. We hope we can all be on the same page with our suppliers and set a good example in our industry. At the same time, we are also providing CSR training courses provided by third parties to our suppliers to improve their executives' understanding of CSR and capacity. We also require our suppliers to comply with all of the major principles such as risk evaluation, compliance of the principles, and auditing, inspection, and continuous improvement, so that CSR can be performed effectively. We attach great importance to the efforts of emission reduction, and energy saving, green development, and circular economy have been the guiding directions for our company during the 13th five-year plan. We've made our future plans for 2016 to 2020 emission reduction. When it comes to greenhouse gases, taking, as well as the reduction of carbon emission, we have also been referring to ISO 14064-1 standard to conduct internal greenhouse gases inspection and audit to make sure that we can get our target achieved. In the future, we will keep working with our partners from different sectors and to make our supply chain in the electronics market greener. Thank you very much. All right, we'd like to thank Alex Yang for the introduction, and we also like to thank everyone who has contributed. When it comes to the 12th goal of UN Sustainable Development Agenda, it is responsible consumer behavior. In order to make sure that we can get that achieved, we need to get aligned with all the brands. That's the reason why today we have invited someone from Ceres, a U.S. environmental organization. So as a U.S. environmental organization, Ceres is dedicated to be working together with the most influential investors and the companies to promote solutions to global issues such as climate change, water shortage, social inequality. We'd like to invite Mindy Luber, Chief Executive of Ceres, to share with us how Ceres is dealing with the challenges.
I'm delighted to be here with you today. I'm Mindy Luber, the CEO of Ceres, a US-based NGO that works directly with many of the world's most influential investors and companies, advocating for them to pursue ambitious strategies and targets that finally meet the urgency of the most pressing global challenges we face, such as climate crisis, water scarcity, and social inequity. The unprecedented events of this year have exposed us to the vulnerability of corporate supply chains in particular, due to the disruptions from COVID-19 and the pandemic lockdowns, and from the extreme weather events driven by climate change. And despite these challenges, our networks of investors and companies saw significant growth in 2020 as we welcomed 44 new members, a clear sign that the sustainability movement as a whole is bigger and stronger and more committed to sustainable business leadership than ever before. To inform and engage these powerful networks on critical supply chain challenges, Ceres continues to focus on issues ranging from deforestation and climate change to fleet electrification and water risk in our food supply or in our supply chains. And now I'm also proud to note that we just released the Ceres Roadmap 2030, a 10-year action plan designed to help companies navigate our rapidly changing business reality, including key actions they should take to address risks across the value chain and to answer the increasing call for transparency from investors and other stakeholders. Companies need timely and decision-useful data to prepare and to thrive in this new paradigm. Many of our Ceres network companies, members of ours, including leaders such as Target, Dell, and Apple, have been using IPE's powerful tools like Blue EcoChain to identify environmental violations in their supply chains, to engage directly with suppliers to clean them up, and to make sure they really know what's going on in their supply chains in places like China. Companies that proactively manage these risks are very definitely better prepared to respond to disruptions and to the growing number of investors who recognize climate change as a material financial risk that needs to be addressed. I've personally been inspired by Ma Jun's bold leadership as he has harnessed the power of data and public pressure to move both companies and government to take responsibility for protecting the planet we share. All of us at Ceres applaud IPA's work and your unwavering commitment to a healthy environment for future generations to come. At this critical juncture, it could not be more clear we all need to work together, companies, investors, NGOs, regulators, policymakers from across the globe, if we're to build a cleaner, more resilient, and just economy. We can do it. Together, we can embrace this opportunity as well as this risk. We can move forward, but now is the time for action. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Minji
Luber, for your introduction. Over the past 10 years, with the cost rise in labor force and raw materials in China, some manufacturings are transferring their supply chains from China to other countries. Just now, Shanshan also mentioned that 2020 IPE efforts on Vietnam's CITI and efforts to promote supply chain transparency. We are very interested in Vietnam's performance. Now I'd like to give you Dr. Linda Garia from who's IPE Senior Fellow. Let's welcome.
Hi, I'm Linda Greer, and I'm the Global Fellow at IPE. Today, I want to talk to you about some work that I undertook this past year that was inspired in large part by a request of many of the companies in our audience today, which is replicating IPE's work in other countries. So many of our most active corporate users have asked us over the years whether we wouldn't consider expanding into other countries important in their supply chain. And this year, thanks to the very generous support of the Bloomberg Foundation and the ClimateWorks Foundation, we were able to take a look at this possibility. And we did it in Vietnam. We selected Vietnam because it's an important sourcing and manufacturing country for so many, but also one where, as opposed to, say, India, there is still a manageable number of factories and where the country is aware of the needs for environmental improvement to some extent already. Our exploration was not just academic, though. Yes, we were interested in readiness from the standpoint of improving the government's environmental oversight, for sure. But we also evaluated this question through the lens of corporate responsibility there to enable best practice green supply chain oversight as well. We did this with an eye towards creating the same community of stakeholders in Vietnam, government, private sector, NGOs, and academics that has delivered such good results here on the ground in China. So what did we look at? 4 things: whether the standards sufficed, the state of the monitoring, both ambient monitoring of environmental conditions and pollution source monitoring, the inspections and enforcement in the country, and of course, the extent to which environmental information was already being disclosed to the public there. And we looked both at the laws on the books and what was actually happening on the ground there. We did this work with a lot of reading, with internet searches, and with Zoom calls with Vietnamese experts and NGOs in the country there. And well, what do we find? On the laws and regulations on the books, basically, they suffice. Standards in Vietnam are less stringent than many elsewhere in Asia, but that limitation doesn't really undermine the value that more open information disclosure would deliver to government officials or other stakeholders like ourselves. On the monitoring and reporting front, well, we have some big problems there. There's only a very small amount of ambient monitoring and pollution source monitoring that's collected in the country, and none of the source monitoring is currently disclosed to the public. Lots of monitoring there still occurs manually, and it's done very infrequently. And although the biggest sources of pollution and industrial zones have recently been required to install some automatic monitors, which is enabling real-time reporting. Still, the government struggles mightily to collect and review data from all their different monitoring sources. And as a result, it's operating without good or timely understanding of where the pollution problems lie. On inspections and enforcements, more bad news. Inspections are very infrequent and mostly pre-announced, giving factories the time to clean up their act or modify production on the day of the visit in order to pass. As with monitoring, this paucity of inspections delivers less information to the government to be available to disclose. But on the bright side, Vietnam has established a solid legal basis for environmental protection and the disclosure of some types of environmental information, particularly enforcement records. It has a solid law on environmental protection and a hefty set of guidance documents, decrees, and circulars. And indeed, we found a decent number of enforcement records on the internet, about 150 of them from just 3 provinces in Vietnam, which we have collected and organized. These records were reasonably detailed and informative too. They compared the discharge standards, the discharge levels against the standards, the amount of the fines and penalties that were waived, etc. And another bright spot is the environmental NGO community in Vietnam. Though it is small, it is very capable and increasingly involved in pollution problems. We connected with a few organizations in particular, named Live and Learn and Green ID and Clean Air Asia. And we also worked with the Dutch NGO there, IDH. And all of these organizations are doing very impressive work, as are a few others in the country as well. So, Bottom line on my report, it's a mixed bag. The country and the multinationals that source there would, without a doubt, benefit from more open information disclosure to improve environmental conditions. But there are some serious pinch points with regards to current data generation, collection, and analysis because of those monitoring problems, as well as the infrequency of inspections. And this limits the amount of information that's available to disclose to the public in the first place, and thereby undermines the immediate potency of a more open information disclosure program. So now what? What's our next steps? We're still figuring those out and they're not final yet, but I want to focus today on the opportunity we see for you in the private sector to play a role with us. In particular, this audience is knowledgeable and experienced in making use of the open information disclosure system we seek for Vietnam. Many of you told us repeatedly that you're interested in seeing this work elsewhere. So we're exploring this idea. Could multinational corporations sourcing in Vietnam ask their suppliers to provide to them directly and to the general public the monitoring data they're collecting, the very same data that they're already giving to the government? I'll remind you that many in this audience already asked their suppliers here in China to directly submit some emissions data through our PRTR program. And that data is submitted independently to us and not to the government. So with this kind of discharge and emission data in hand in Vietnam, our community could begin to build a database that gets the ball rolling. We could also usefully develop a map, much like the early maps we made in China, that locates all the facilities we can find geographically and provides whatever information we might have, however scanty it might be at the moment, with a click. And we'd come to you for help with this as well and ask for your list of suppliers in Vietnam, which you could provide us confidentially or with your name publicly attached. We have some other ideas that we're considering to improve government efforts, of course, and we would work with you there as well. But I'll stop here for now. So I'm hoping I've piqued your curiosity for more on this topic and that some of you in the audience would be interested in proactively working with us in our next steps. Please give that some thought, and we will be reaching out to you by email after the conference to invite you to step up and join our efforts. So thank you so much for your attention, and I really look forward to CITI 2021, when hopefully we'll all be together physically and we'll be able to enjoy some tea breaks and some lunch and each other's company. Thanks again.
感谢 Linda 的介绍。那相信
Thank
Linda
you,
的
Linda, for your introduction. I'm sure that her introduction has answered many questions raised by the audience about Vietnam. If you want to follow Vietnam's progress in real time, you can contact our project officer. In 2020, 8 ministries, including People's Bank of China and MOFCOM, issued a notice on piloting the green supply chain digitalization. In particular, the development of digital technology solutions of green supply chain to improve the capability of the green supply chain. And the development of green supply chain faces opportunities from digitalization, internet development, and so on. Now I would like to give you Li Yang, Senior Product Operations Manager of Insblue Digital Solution, to talk about green supply chain digital technology solutions. Please turn on your microphone and the camera. Thank you, moderator.
PPT 的屏幕共享。很荣幸今天借此盛会之际
It's my great honor to participate in the forum to introduce our innovative digital solution for green supply chain management. Previous speakers shown us the change of the times. Policy and regulatory environments are changing, creating new opportunities for green supply chain. At the same time, the existing management model is challenged by the new situations in the following ways. First of all, real timely access to data. In the information age, regulation is dynamic and swift, and the spread of the event is also very fast. If we are not able to capture these dynamics, that will be a problem for the supply chain management. Second, how to obtain the data. The change of green supply chain management requires data support. However, the current problem is that the data is not centralized. It is scattering on the different platforms. There are difficulties in collecting and organizing data.
The rapid policy updates have also made the timeliness of solutions more challenging, and how to get access to such data, how to use such data, and how to interpret such data. For managers of supply chains, sometimes they are not professionals of EHS, but they need to understand these data so that they can make effective and important decisions in doing their business, and how to make sure that there can be more participation and there can be synergy between them in green supply chain management to have a on-scale change. Insblue is a company that is trying to solve this problem. As an innovative digital solution provider, Insblue is not only capable of providing support in green supply chain management, it can also offer added value in terms of green supply chain finance and other issues. Talking about Insblue platform, we offer 24/7 hours risk monitoring. So this can help us to solve the problem of timeliness of getting information. You can see the modules for risk monitoring in the picture. So if there is a change to the risk of this company, there will be a notice to the users, and users can check out the specifics by tapping into one of the companies. The second service provided by Insblue is that based on the big data integration, there is a one-stop information available about different companies. So far, the platform already incorporated a few dozens of data categories. So these data are effective and real-time. For example, environmental monitoring, automated monitoring, and priorities in energy monitoring, in environmental monitoring, for example. And we also offer professional data interpretation services based on our big data capacity. Now we have two dynamic risk assessment systems, one for environmental credit, the other for environmental risks. So these can become information of reference for decision makers, and they can also help to improve the de facto value of the data. If we're looking at environmental credit is a qualitative evaluation of the historic data of the company. It is comprehensive evaluation of environmental performance, especially the monitoring of environmental performance of those companies. For example, one company is here and there are 62 records for corrections for this company. And you can see that this company is going to get a score which is minus 372. And with every correction being conducted, its score may improve. So with such a dynamic evaluation system, users can track the environmental performance of this company online. And they can also make judgment of how good this company is in terms of the management capacity and awareness for environmental issues. If credit is about the past, then risk is about a forecast of what's going to happen in the future, especially those factors that may affect the stability of a company's operations. So compliance is not sufficient to deal with complicated external risks. That's why the risk assessment system has also incorporated ecological red line and potential risks for production shutdown and suspension and environmental damage. So you can see that there is a clear difference between credit and risk. We show the credit risk on the left-hand side. So it shows that its credit, environmental credit is solid. It means this company pays attention to environmental protection. And from the risk database, you can see this company is having a higher risk. And the risk is mainly attributed to its location, geographically, and what it is doing, which is quite risky. And there was also a recent fire breaking out in this company. So risk is really about having a more dynamic understanding of what's going on with the company. And our platform can also offer statistics for risk management. We support the on-batch output of data, so companies can conduct the on-batch management of risks, and users can make statistics of what are the changes to the environmental credit levels of different companies, and they can also see what supplier companies are newly adding such environmental performance indicators. When it comes to information disclosure, now everything is going towards a more joint management approach instead of just having the government playing the only role as regulator. Now, regulation that comes from different directions, including the general public, will make our environmental monitoring effort successful in the future. And we need to make sure that green supply chain reform can be achieved in a more scalable approach by many companies. That's why we try to provide a ready-to-use information disclosure function that can be used to digitally enable companies to have multi-stakeholder engagement and governance. So the information disclosure mechanism of the platform will be connected with the environmental risk database. For a company with information disclosure, it can prove its correction of environmental violations. It can also improve its environmental credit and reduce its environmental risks so that its competitiveness can be higher. And for brands, by having information disclosure and more timely traceability system, it can also have better management of its supply chain. Insblue is also providing certain confidentiality protection functions so that companies don't need to worry about their trade secrets with regard to environmental performance. And now we are open for trial, and we welcome you to give it a try at the website of insblue.com.cn. And we hope that we can get your feedback. feel free to reach out, as you can find my contact information here. As I'll be part of this green transformation. Thank you very much. Would like to thank Liu Yang for the kind introduction from Insblue. Thank you all for the speeches and sharing. We've also collected some questions from the audience. Some questions have already been answered by words, and there are some questions I'd like to invite some of the participants to answer. So the first question is for the Dell representative. I don't know if you are online. Yes, I'm online. So the question is for Dell. Your vice president shared a 2030 target. So how will Dell implement its environmental targets in the coming few years? Thank you very much for the question. As we all know, when we were setting the goal for 2020 in 2012, we completed our target in advance, ahead of schedule, and we announced our target for the next stage last year, especially for the target of 2030. Today, you already heard our vice president giving introduction about it. So we are going to build a cross-department coordinating team. This target is not going to be achieved by our department, but it's going to be achieved by our procurement department, our manufacturing department, our supply chain management department. So it's going to be a cross-department effort. And we already are working on it. We will have a coordinated working group, and we have broken down the targets for different departments. I believe they are going to fully implement those targets. The first step is we're going to set such a cross-departmental working groups in different regions, and we are going to make it public of our performance and progress through our annual report. When it comes to the targets of environmental performance, I believe just like what we did, we need to continue to uphold the principle of transparency. And it's great for us to win the honor of City Master, but we are not going to be complacent. We are not going to cut ourselves any slacks. We're just going to keep up the good work and follow the protocol. So we know now a CITI index has become something that's imperative for every single procurement manager at Dell. We're going to keep up the good work, and we're going to make more public disclosure of our PRTR performance and answer to the questions and inquiries from the public. And the second part is about when it comes to some issues such as energy, water, we are going to keep making investment in reducing energy consumption, water consumption, and we are going to make sure that 60% of energy consumption can be achieved with our supply chain. Every server that we produce, every personal computer that we make, we need to reduce 60% of the energy consumption so that we keep working with our suppliers. Now the tier 1 suppliers have already set with us a goal for carbon emission reduction. And now we are going further with tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, and we are providing them with tools so that we can reach the target for 2030 together. And the last point is that when it comes to a circular economy, we are going to keep investment in that direction. We're going to push our suppliers to work on more the zero landfill of solid wastes. We want to make sure that our suppliers can really turn those wastes into valuable assets rather than just having landfill as the only solution. And we are going to make sure that the level of zero landfill will be improved with our effort across the supply chain of Dell.
We want to use the IPE platform to collaborate with different stakeholders to address environmental problems. We also advocate, for instance, recently with IPE, other companies in the industry, we created the Green Procurement Alliance. We hope that through such collaboration, we are able to provide stakeholders in China good experience. This is my personal view. I will stop here for the interest of time. Thank you, Jason, for your very detailed introduction, and also how Dell manage suppliers of different tiers. And also the Green Procurement Committee initiated together with IPE in the future, we will have more innovative supplier management methodologies. The next question is about the CNA. The CNA's brand manager here.
你好，李萌，我在。
哦，你好，你好。哦，你好，你好。那这个是 CNA 在推
This
进
question is that in promoting the supply chain to develop in a more in-depth way what the CNA has done, what achievements have been made, and what are the challenges in the process. Actually, CNA, since our collaboration with IPE, we have been hoping that in our supply chain, we are able to promote our at the lower level. Last year compared to the previous year, in 2018, only 5 suppliers are not, their products are not sold well, do not sell well. But last year, including our direct collaboration with the chemical supplier, we have started to gradually include our chemical suppliers to map our chemical suppliers. Chemical suppliers now account for 80% of the purchased value in our supply chain.
那么，在去年的时候呢，
Last year,
对于化学品供应商的一
for
个管控
chemical suppliers management,
通过
we mainly relied on the tool of IPE, Blue EcoChain.
直接联系
We will contact chemical suppliers directly
这一些化学品供应
and
商。
through our supply chain to reach suppliers and motivate them to register and adopt Blue EcoChain so that the 3 parties are able to collaborate closely. We are able to see their real-time environmental performance, so do themselves, so as to achieve real-time monitoring. With that, we are able to identify environmental violations and events immediately, and we will contact them once problems are found, so that we also will inform them of these problems, and also we will use a mechanism jointly built by us to solve the problems. This process sounds very easy, but in the past few years, we have encountered many problems and challenges. If you are working on brand development, if you have touched upon this area, you will know that for direct supply chain, it is easy. But for indirect supply chain, it is very difficult because for the chemical suppliers, we do not have direct business lines, business direct business relations with them. Our influence comes from the direct suppliers. The direct suppliers can influence the indirect suppliers, and we will influence the direct suppliers. So we have also tried to communicate more with them, and we have also realized that it is very difficult for one single brand to talk to them because we procure very little from indirect suppliers. So we called upon other brands who also purchase products from the indirect suppliers. So we teamed up to persuade the indirect supplier together so as to help solve the problems and help the suppliers improve their environmental performance. That's all. Thank you.
感谢CNA 的品牌代表的。
Thank you, CNA's representative, for your very informative answer.
他提到的，我们
In the last part,
联合开展
she said she hopes more brands can work together. That is also why IPE has held forums and roundtables. For the textile industry in Zhejiang province and Dongguan in Guangdong province, we have seen that many brands have started to try to promote their wastewater treatment plants and chemical plants, motivate these plants to persuade their suppliers to manage themselves better. We hope that in the future we can take more actions. And if you're interested, you can contact IPEs, contact the person. Thank you to CIA's brand manager again. The next question is to Cisco. Is Cisco's brand officer here?
你好，这个问题是观众想问
This question, how Cisco motivates the ownership of suppliers in executing management. I want to make 3 points based on our experience in green supply chain management. First of all, inside the company, we need to have a complete green supply chain management system and collaborate with the stakeholders and other relevant departments on that. It's very important because supply chain environmental management, if the management is poor, it will damages our reputation and SCR. For instance, the event 3 years ago in Kunshan, Shanghai. So our system must be consistent with our own brand's procurement strategy and model. Secondly, we should consider we should provide both incentive and disincentive to suppliers so as to motivate suppliers to get a sense of ownership in managing green supply chain. And also, we have a scoring system for the suppliers. We will score the suppliers every quarter and report the scoring results. Based on IPE's blue map, we are able to get the records and the data of environmental performance of suppliers. But we hope that in the first place, the suppliers can have the sense of ownership. They will take the initiative in reporting on their environmental problems to IPE. So such a sense of ownership is a key part of our evaluation of suppliers, including how to report the environmental violations to upper supplier and the clients. And also in the annual Cisco conference, we will reward the companies with impressive performance. That is our incentive system. Lastly, We will also organize the routine conversations with suppliers to organize trainings for them so as to enhance their awareness of and capabilities of environmental management. And awareness of the importance is very important because it's not just as a quest of customers, it is also related to their operations. Supplier training will enhance their skills for environmental management and also help the suppliers solve the problems in the real world and improve their environmental performance. These 3 points we think are very important for suppliers to improve their self-management. Thank you.
好的，谢谢Cisco 的负责人的回答。
Thank you for your answer.
他也提到了就是如何去
Just now he mentioned that how to help suppliers sense of self-management. The next question, points to the next question for Foxconn. Foxconn here.
好的，这个问题我来回答。那个您好，我先说一下那个观众的问题，好吧？对，就是接着
First of all, I will say what the question is.
从供应商的环境管理意识出发，有一些工厂它
environmental management.
比较前瞻的风险和管控
Some
意识。
factories have strong sense of environmental management, but they are insufficient in capabilities and skills. So, how brands help such factories control their environmental risks?
那个我是那个富士康全球采购啊，负责
I'm from Foxconn Global Procurement Department. I'm in charge of the global procurement promotion. As the largest manufacturer in the world, Foxconn has the largest and most complicated supply chain. So promoting green supply chain is a big challenge. Apple, Dell, and Cisco, driven by these brands, we have been promoting green supply chain actively. IP is also contacting us to use Blue Map. I think IP is a very influential and credible platform. We started to use IPE's Blue Map tool to promote our green supply chain. In promoting green supply chain, we found a very specific question that different factories have very different capabilities. Their levels vary. Some of them are big factories, some of them are small and medium-sized companies with only 100 or less employees. In the past, Foxconn engineers tell the factories how to manage green supply chain, how to fill in their tier. But now due to the insufficient staffing, we developed the green supply chain platform, which can be interfaced with IPE's platform. For the high energy consuming and the high energy consuming factories, we will ask them to register on our platform so that our customers and Foxconn together can inspect and screen suppliers. And this this platform is developed together with a high-tech company in Shenzhen. It will help us to do green supply chain management better in Foxconn, making our fair share of contribution to the cause.
好，谢谢富士康的品牌对接人的回答。
Colleague from Foxconn, he gave us a very specific solution. The next question is to H&M. Is H&M here? H&M. Is H&M here? So later on, we will get the answer from H&M. The next question is Huawei. Is Huawei here?
好，那如果这两个品牌负责人现在不在线的话，
If both of them are not here, so we have
H&M 品牌负责人现在在线了是吗？
answered all the questions. So H&M is back.
好嘞。那这个问题，观众问的是面对
This
全球
question is that in face of the global
和选择，
sluggish global economy, what
请负责人在回答问题的时候，
changes will be to the requirement and the choice of suppliers?
谢谢。我们其实其实任何情况下，我
For
们对
us,
供应链的
under
这个
any circumstance, our requirement for supply chain sustainability has never changed.
其实我们对于可持续发展
Today,
是加强了这个要求，
affected by COVID, we
能够更加
have even
发展的需
made
要。
it much more demanding from the green supply chain perspective.
它能够
We hope our supply chain, especially in China, can further improve their performance. It's not only about compliance, but we also hope that when it comes to climate change, our suppliers can do more.
好的，谢谢 H&M。
Thank you very much for the answer from HM.
那接下来我刚才看到，
你好，柠檬
已经到了是吧？你好，那现在最后一个问题是针对
And the question is for IPC, which is introduced by Huawei. So, how will the standard accelerate green supply chain?
听到我声音吗？
Can you hear me? Yes.
我把那个 mute 没有取消，所以说没法接上话。OK， 好的，那个我刚才的发言里面就特别介
In
绍了。
my speech, I mentioned IPC 1401 standard. I will be talking more about it because it's more of a international industry standard. And IPC is also an international organization. From 2014, there were 20 industry organizations and 200 companies and 400 experts participated in the making of this standard. It is to solve a common problem, as already mentioned by the representative from Dell and Cisco, which is that our suppliers, home and abroad, have a problem how to accelerate CSR performance and how to accelerate environmental improvements. After rounds of discussion, we came to some consensus. Our understanding of environmental performance is not good enough, and sometimes we don't know where the value of environmental performance lies. That's why when we don't have a clear understanding of the importance of these issues, it might be difficult for us to come up with more actions. So the experts in that discussion made some comparison of the best practices across the world and trying to focus on the key issue by redefining CSR and environmental performance of companies. It is no longer about compliance risk alone. It is more about the corporate strategy of a company. It's more about the product attribute that a company is also offering. So we combined CSR with competitiveness, business, and a strategy of a company. By setting such a standard, we can also make comparison and we can benchmark against the best practices across the world, and we can emphasize what we're doing is driven by business, is customer oriented, and with profit and loss analysis, with ROI analysis, we'll be able to identify the risks of environmental and CSR nature. And we can also identify the opportunities lies in there so that the countermeasures that we can come up with will be effectively addressing those issues. By doing so, we also hope that what's required of IPC standard can be reflected through every single process in the business. If we can achieve this part of the value, then we'll be able to correct the misunderstanding of the value of CSR and environmental performance. So the companies will change their mindset to be more actively taking actions. That is the background of IPC standard. It is really about helping companies to take initiative to take measures of CSR and environmental protection, green procurement, green product, green packaging, green operation, to combine all these environmental attributes with business so that all the misunderstandings can be avoided and the best practices will be shared. And we can also accelerate the process by sharing best practice. So that is, again, the value brought by IPC 1401 standard. Thank you very much.
感谢周总的回答，特别
Great.
是
Thank you for the answers from Mr. Zhou, especially what you shared on how to be more customer-oriented and business-driven to make suppliers more actively on board. So I believe that's also where all the brands and the suppliers are looking forward to. With that, I'd like to conclude the part of Q&A. We'd like to thank everyone for answering those specific questions in such a candid way. And we believe by being so open and candid, we'll be able to all give something back to the effort of green supply chain. So we'd like to stop here with the Q&A. If you have more questions, you can also go to our website and you can leave your message. And please go
那今天的最后，我
to
想
our
在
website. At the end, I'd like to invite Mr. Ma Jun, Director of IPE, to give us a conclusion of today's forum. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to thank all the speakers who have shared so much their knowledge and understanding of global challenges, climate change. And they also talked about their government's approach and policies. They also talked about the best practice they have in their company. And they also mentioned their collaboration with NGOs and the innovative solutions and instruments offered by such players. When COVID-19 is still plaguing the world and when so many companies are affected by COVID, we are privileged to hear the relentless effort of companies home and abroad, those industry leaders who have been dedicating their efforts to green supply chain and their green actions. If we can share them with more people, with more businesses, that will be even a greater impetus for all of us to further promote green supply chain. The keywords such as environment, climate change, human health, human benefits, corporate responsibility, CSR, stakeholders, and partnerships have all appeared many times. And you also mentioned information, data, transparency. I do believe today is the time for information technology to help us. Even though we are thousands of miles away from each other, we are still able to see each other here, to feel we are all in this together. I do believe smart technologies are going to give us even more with artificial intelligence, IoT, AI, blockchain, all these new technologies, etc. We'll be able to collaborate with government, NGO, and the business in the private sector to further optimize our green supply chain and to safeguard our one and only blue mother planet. Thank you all very much for joining us tomorrow together with NRDC and board and SEE foundations as well as Alibaba Public Good Foundations to have a climate change action forum with regard to the role of green supply chain, and there will be a lot of representatives making contributions and sharing. With that, I'd like to conclude today's forum. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Well, thank you for the kind conclusion. A big thank you to everyone, to the participants and audiences. Please join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. afternoon. We'd also like to remind everyone that for tomorrow's meeting, we have another link. No matter you are watching this via Zoom or WeChat, please remember you got the correct link, and you can also scan the QR code for Bilibili live streaming. Thank you. Bye-bye.